Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro warned that the entire country will respond with armed struggle to any attempt of aggression against the national territory, in full defense of its stability and sovereignty. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, signed an executive order authorizing the change of the Pentagon's name to the Department of War. In Palestine, over 64,000 citizens were killed and over 162,000 were injured after the completion of 700 days of Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Sophie Fernandez from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro warned that the entire country will respond with armed struggle to any attempt of aggression against the national territory, in full defense of its stability and sovereignty. During the activation of the community militia units, Maduro reiterated that the plan of the Venezuelan peoples is to live in peace. The president affirmed that Venezuela was a territory free of cocaine and growing and production, rejecting what he called a false narrative imposed by the U.S. imperialism in an attempt to justify its interventionist aggression against Venezuela and the rest of the peoples of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Importante por los combates que hemos dado en Venezuela contra.
It's very important because of our combat against the violence-generating gangs in Venezuela, against the violence-generating groups, against the armed terrorists and drug traffickers from Colombia, against all those groups. We have achieved a great victory. And due to the great victory of our Bolivarian National Armed Forces, together with the Union of Military, Police and Popular Forces, Venezuela is today a territory free of coca leaf production, free of drug processing in the country, and very soon we will be 100% free of any attempt to bring even 1 gram of that drug into the national territory, and that is an achievement of our integral defense doctrine.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro denounced the criminal plans of U.S. imperialism to dominate and colonize all the peoples of the world.
Tienen los planes.
They have plans to conquer, subdue, colonize, and dominate the world. They can have their plans, but we have plans for peace, stability, tranquility, and national unity in Venezuela, in line with the new multipolar world that has already been born. These are our plans. So we are already on the right track. There has never been a more just and sacred cause than ours, founded by Bolivar, continued by Commander Chavez, and today we are making it prevail with the power of the nation, with the immense power that comes from the unity of the people, their military, and their police.
In this regard, President Nicolás Maduro assured that the country is in a state of military readiness over the U.S. threats and that it will go right away into the armed struggle phase in the face of any aggression attempt.
Everything has its phase. Right now we are in the enlistment phase, in the preparation phase, and we are going to move on to the phase of deploying defensive capabilities, and training and retraining the entire Venezuelan population. We are still in the phase of an armed struggle, which has political, communicational, institutional, national, and international nature, and which is a phase of development. But if Venezuela were to be attacked in any way, we would move on to the stage of planned, organized, armed defense by the entire population against any aggression, whether local, regional, or national. We would move into a stage of armed struggle in defense of peace, territorial integrity, sovereignty, and our people.
In other news, the Puerto Rican Independence Party demanded that the local legislative assembly cancel any plans aimed at remilitarizing the country. This is ultimately addressed to the Trump administration and Congress in the context of U.S. Navy maneuvers in the Caribbean. It follows Pentagon orders to station F-35 jets at an air base in Puerto Rico. The deployment takes place in parallel to the growing U.S. threats against the sovereignty of Venezuela. The party document calls for decolonization and the cleanup of land contaminated by U.S. military exercises. Puerto Rico's political status as a Commonwealth allows for some autonomy, but Washington controls defense, borders, and diplomatic relations. And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, signed an executive order authorizing the change of the Pentagon's name to the Department of War. The U.S. President argued that the new name projects strength and sends a message of victory. This executive order runs against a major legal obstacle, in that, according to the country's constitution, it is the Congress and not the President that has the authority to establish and modify executive departments. The War Department was created in 1789 at the dawn of the United States Republic to oversee the Army and Navy. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom declared Saturday that the Mpox infection, formerly known as monkeypox, no longer represents a global public health emergency, following a sustained decrease in cases in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
We also have a better understanding of the drivers of transmission, the risk factors for severity, and the most affected countries have developed a sustained response capacity. Of course, lifting the emergency declaration does not mean the threat is over, nor that our response will stop. The possibility of continued flare-ups and new outbreaks remains, requiring adequate surveillance and response capacity. Ongoing efforts are needed to protect the most vulnerable groups, particularly young children and people living with HIV.
Member countries of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization agreed to establish their own development bank. This agreement was part of the final declaration of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, held recently in the Chinese city of Tianjin. The measure seeks to promote cooperation between states in economics and security, dealing a blow to Western financial institutions. The Tianjin Declaration will allow the members of the bloc to issue joint shares, create an infrastructure for payments and deposits, as well as the establishment of joint investment bank. These initiatives, supported by Russia, are expected to increase the efficiency of economic exchanges and protect them from fluctuations in the external economic environment. In Argentina, where the international meeting cultural rights to imagine democracies and citizenships is taking place. The event, which ends on September 6th, embraces a space for resistance, democratic imagination, and community building, in a context of increasing inequalities, political crisis, and hate speeches around the world. The Cultural Center of Spain in Buenos Aires is the venue where various thinkers, artists, officials, and cultural activists from all over Latin America and Spain meet, offering open days to the public, both face-to-face and virtual, around the building of international bridges throughout culture. And now we have a second short break coming up. But before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break coming, don't go away. Welcome back. After completing 700 days of the Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian authorities account more than 64,300 civilians killed and at least 162,005 injured. The health authorities confirmed the death of at least 70 civilians amid the bombing by the occupying troops during the last 24 hours, as well as 3 new deaths due to severe malnutrition. The emergency service announced the impossibility of the rescue teams to recover bodies and care for victims trapped under the debris, and the constant attacks by the occupation army against ambulances and civil defense teams. The Israeli genocidal offensive continues its course, despite calls from the Security Council of the United Nations and the International Court of Justice to an immediate and permanent ceasefire. Meanwhile, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, called the international community to avoid a greater catastrophe in Gaza due to Israeli aggressions. The request was part of a report issued by the International Agency's Communications Officer for the Middle East and North Africa, Tess Ingram, after a visit to the enclave. The high UN official noted that Palestinians in the area are living in the middle of fear, flood, and funerals, and that children are in grave danger. The report also warned about the collapse of essential services in the enclave, leaving thousands of vulnerable children fighting for their lives, while famine is spreading and humanitarian aid is non-existent. On this end, the government of Egypt condemned recent statements made by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about his desire to displace the Palestinians from their lands throughout the Rafah crossing. Throughout his foreign ministry, Egypt emphasized that Israel's claims represents a flagrant violation of international law that amounts to the crime of the ethnic cleansing, and called on the international community to activate the mechanisms of accountability for these publicly declared crimes. It also emphasized that the country will not be complicit in the liquidation of the Palestinian cause or become a gateway for displacement, and called for a ceasefire in Gaza, a full Israeli withdrawal, and international support for the return of the Palestinian Authority to the territory, including control of the border crossings. After the Egyptian condemnation, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Egypt has preferences in what he called an imprisonment of the enclave's residents, assuring that the Palestinian population wishes to leave their territories. It is important to mention that the Zionist regime since 1948 maintains positions to illegally control the Palestinian population and territories. Let us remember that Netanyahu is accused of war crimes by the International Criminal Court after multiple lawsuits filed, among them the one from South Africa against him for the crime of genocide. The development of renewable energy in Cuba has come to stay as a permanent, affordable and viable solution to the Caribbean islands' energy problems. And that is the challenge taken by CITMIC, a non-agricultural cooperative which has bet on using the sun to provide concrete answers to the country's energy needs. From Havana, our correspondent Belén de los Santos with the history on the 5th and last episode of The Cuban Way.
Cuban rooftops show that something is changing. Faced with the challenge of the country's energy situation, a group of 23 workers decided to use their technical knowledge to find a solution in the use of renewable energies. This is the work of CITMIC, the non-agricultural cooperative that seeks to provide a concrete answer by utilizing one of the island's most valuable resources, the sun.
The cooperative submitted the initial paperwork. There was already a group of members who were committed to renewable energy, who were certain that it was the future of the country and that the country had to get involved in the use of all these forms of energy. In the case of solar radiation, it is widespread throughout the world. Countries such as Spain, Germany, China, and the United States have highly developed it. However, they do not have the radiation regime that our country has, which is very favorable. It will be difficult for anyone to put a blockade on the sun, and simply with high-quality technology that we can import, with high standards, we could work precisely on that sustainability in replacing the fossil fuels, which is so necessary for the country.
On top of working with private initiatives and government agencies, the cooperative seeks to collaborate with public institutions to bring this technology to different corners of the country. In Trillo Park, in the heart of Havana, this dream has become a reality. It's a pilot project designed with the national company Hazel.
It all begins with a solar panel, which captures the radiation and sends it to a battery inside the lamp. It has an automated program that turns on as night falls and turns off as dawn breaks. And it has really had a huge impact. Neighbors have told us repeatedly that it has been the meeting place in the midst of the blackout, where everyone, children and elderly people, have found a beacon of light. We believe that any project related to renewable energy sources, which is focused on replacing fossil fuels, but also on sustainability, should not be undertaken without a community base. That is the daily work of the cooperative, trying to find solutions that have a positive impact on our society.
The decision to form a cooperative is one of the keys to CITMIC's success. Teamwork and horizontal dialogue in search of solutions.
We discuss every project, every solution, every proposal, and we always try to improve it with the opinion of the group. And that is how we move forward. From a social and human perspective, the work of the cooperative is very fulfilling, and we are very satisfied to be working in this way.
Like this, CITMIC continues its day-to-day efforts to make sure that Cuba, with its optimal climatic conditions and available technical knowledge, finds in this technology a key to its sustainable energy development.
We are a Cuban enterprise. We are small, but we are a Cuban enterprise. We are in Cuba. We know about the daily situation that the people, industries, government, how all of us are suffering due to the blockade, its financial limitations, all these things. When you share that feeling and that daily experience, you are motivated to be part of the solution. The country is currently committed to renewable energy. I want to do our part as a cooperative in finding the most efficient way to bring renewable energy sources to the development of our country, to the sustainable development of our country.
Belén de los Santos, Denise Araví, for teleSUR from Havana, Cuba.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Sophie Fernandez. Thank you for watching.